What's up, guys? Joe Youngblood with Tradger Farms. Hope you guys are doing well. We're back here on the farm finishing up the last couple fencing on our trees. I left 5 or so behind, just probably a time constraint, but we're out here, we're gonna finish that up. Like I said in the last video, a lot of these trees are getting to the point where they're going to be actually surpassing the tubes in the first year. Not exactly these, because these are persimmon and kind of the latest to really get going with the leafing out and growing. But a lot of the other oaks that we did and chestnut are really taking off. So it's good that we're going to get these fencing in. Then later in the summer, when we're working on our food plots and stuff like that, we don't need to worry about the deer nipping the tops off if these keep growing really fast. So we'll wrap that up. We'll be done. I did want to mention to you guys, got in touch with Whitetail Hill Chestnut for just a couple of trees that didn't seem to leaf out and get going. 2 out of 35 or so. And then there was one that I just couldn't find. I don't know if it was missing or what happened to it, but they give you a credit, and they did give me a credit for those 3 trees. I told you I would let you guys know how that grow guarantee went. And it was pretty simple. Contacted them, I sent a couple pictures and let them know, and within like a day or so I had the credit. And now when some of these come back in stock, I will go ahead and use that credit to purchase 3 more trees, or a few more if you want to, and you can get those going in the fall. What I don't want you guys to do is come back out here, in July and put those trees in the middle of the heat of summer. I want you to be able to catch those fall rains. Maybe you have a couple locations that you want to put some trees out where it's not super intrusive, so you don't mind coming out maybe in September when you guys are layering your food plots with some winter rye. You're already out there, got your muck boots on, throw a couple trees in, and that way they will catch some of those fall rains that will come, in the later part of August, September, October, into the hunting season. And the trees can do very well, and they'll go dormant, and they'll come back, of course, next year, just like the rest. But at least you'll get the moisture that you need. So wanted to keep you guys posted on that. And then other than that, today we're gonna be just doing some odds and ends. Gonna be working on the fence up front, taking care of straightening things up, removing a couple trees that I just don't want to fall on the shed, etc. And then really kind of looking at the rest of the trees, cuttings, bring you guys some of that. And yeah, that's about it. So let's get to work. All right, guys, we are at one of our pockets. Quick update. You can see the 2 poplar and 2 willows in the middle are doing pretty dang good. I will tell you that I am now finding poop. You can see some there, I believe. You can see some way over there past the far willow. You can see a pile right here on this weed barrier. Kind of hard to see on the phone screen. And this netting, guys, what happens, or what has been happening, outside of just not being perfect, depending on how much you stake it down, zip tie it, the weeds, as they grow, they kind of pull back and forth. So even as you stake and the weeds grow and the zip ties are pulling latitude wise, you get some holes, and you can actually see, the fence looks pretty good, but like right here, there's a pretty big gaping hole. I'll probably still zip tie it just to kind of keep the deer at bay, because the deer will certainly hit those bigger trees and crush them. Right now, fortunately, unfortunately, I think it's just a lot of the 12-inch cuttings that I had on here might have been nibbled off quite a bit. So at least for this pocket, not looking super good. The other ones could be a little different. They were growing fairly well. Those are the 12-inch cuttings. As a refresher, those are 6 footers. They're just in the ground, 18 inches or so. So maybe next year, going into it, especially if this weed barrier still looks pretty good, what I might do is get some of the larger cuttings just to have them a little bit higher out of the ground. You still want to put them in quite a bit, like a 24-incher, you still want in like 18 inches, but if you could get away with that or slightly less, just to get the cutting a little bit more off the ground, maybe, so rabbits and such, it's just not right at their ground level. It might be a little more beneficial. So for now, I'm at least happy those still look good. As far as I know, the rest are looking pretty good. Over there is the pocket that had a good chunk of the fence down. So I'm gonna zip tie this, head over there, see how that's looking. The other thing I will say that I'm kind of noticing, guys, is, you know, we were doing so much in a day. I'm not saying we were careless, but getting some of the holes open for the cuttings, you know, maybe we made them a touch big instead of just big enough. And some of the weeds, like you can see that far poplar has a bunch of weeds growing in at the bottom. And it really could be, you know, also smothering some as well. So we're always trying to maximize not just growth, but, you know, the survivor rate and stuff like that. Anything we can do to help might be a little value add for next year. So hopefully this weed barrier stays, even if I have to put, you know, a couple clumps of dirt on here, you know, open the fence a touch and just do a few more cuttings. At least then the weed barrier is really, you know, not going to waste, and we get as much habitat out of this as we can, trying to reclaim these fields. You can see how tall the weeds are though. You know, I'm 6'2", so things are always filling in pretty good. You can see a lot of our cuttings here on the island hinges and some flush cuts just to open up things and expand some of the woods, let it fill in. Excuse me. But yeah, the food plots, definitely see some buckwheat coming in. It hasn't been super long, but also, you know, a good chunk of weeds as well. Things were so dry at the time. We did get some rain after, which was nice, but things were so dry that even the cultipacker, I don't think was doing anything because the ground was just so hard. Felt like it was just kind of a waste. I did some parts, and then when I was going over a hard pan, I just kind of left it and I didn't cultipack it anymore. But I do see some coming up. Like I've been saying for the last few years, if you guys have been following along, if it smothers it out, great. We're really going to be going for that, you know, kind of no-till. But again, if there's too many weeds coming through, either from soil conditions or glyphosate resistant weeds, even though we did spray with 2,4-D, sometimes it's just not as not enough to keep up with some of the weed competition. It depends where you're at and what's growing, and you know, definitely a bunch of variables. So if that's the case, hopefully be able to borrow some time or equipment and get things work just a little bit into the soil, scratch that surface. Highly recommend it, whether you guys are using a drag or what have you. If you run into the same issues, got to scratch those surface up. Those bigger seeds, they have to get buried somewhat. They can't just be sitting on the surface. You're not going to get beans and peas and things like that to grow. So keep that in mind. Might not be browse. Those could be some of the reasons why some of your seeds aren't taking off like you want them to, unlike brassica and stuff where it's very small and right on the surface. You know, with moisture and seed to soil contact, you're pretty much going to get growth. So bear that in mind, but we'll see what happens. You guys were wondering a little bit, you know, someone asked a question about the type of trees and spruce and things like that. And sometimes I do say pine and spruce interchangeably. There's so many different trees you can plant. We went with Norway spruce a lot of the time because deer seem to not mess with them as much as some of like white pine and things like that. They're also full sun, you know, trees. So for these fields, they work good. But we also planted these Austrian pines a couple years ago. I want to say they're going into their third season, if I'm not correct. But those are pretty cool. They're different. It's branching off pretty nice. So just a little diversity, but I thought you might want to see it. All right, we are back to this opening here where we had some troubles with this guy. Little hole there, but for the most part, you know, us kind of retightening some of the corners up here really helped with a couple more zip ties. So I can see some other leaves and branches coming off the willows. That poplar right there has some more leaves going off of it. That far poplar looks like it has some at the bottom. I don't know if it's gonna make it, we'll see. But hopefully at least these 3, maybe 4 will come back. I see some of the small ones were looking okay. That one's not looking too good. It's kind of funny, you know, this weed barrier, right? It has the lines, guys, that you can see on here. If you put them too close to the edge also, and you're doing something similar to like this star pattern, obviously the weeds were gonna fill in the corners. You might wanna move them in just a little bit more because then they're still so close. It looks like that one there is gonna make it. But some of the weeds and stuff like this, they're just so close to the edge. Not only are the weeds coming through the hole, but it's right next to where all the rest of the weeds are growing. But the rest of the weed barrier is looking so nice. I mean, even if it was in a staggered line, guys, it doesn't really matter. Might as well, you know, give them the best chance of survival, bring them in a foot or two. Even if it's just a slight stagger, you'll have kind of these different windbreaks and different stuff growing. I don't see any poop in this circle, so might not be browse pressure that's keeping it down. Just you know, this one's living there, if you can see that. And then further out, guys, it's just honestly, some of these I can't even tell because they're so close to the weeds on the edge. They just blend right in. Can't even find the holes. So anyway, it's still seems to be working pretty good. And yep, that's living right there, if you can see that. And then it's just so hard to see some of the small ones. I see a few that are dead. So these little ones did struggle so far, I guess. Tides have turned slightly. So I'll keep you guys posted. It is what it is. We did have quite a lengthy, you know, drought there for a while. A lot of the watering I got to do was with the fruit trees, just because I could reach them and stuff and not deal with the fencing. I did end up buying a pump, but it was a little too late to get out here and use the pump. I mean, it had already been so long, so it is possible also that, you know, that dryness affected some of the younger growth as well. All right, guys, that was about it. It was a good day, got a lot done. Wasn't too much new for you, but I hope you took away a couple things. Coming up next, probably have a couple of different things, maybe some different mowings, and you know, some specifics on how to tailor, you know, deer movement also with mowing and just path of least resistance. I really enjoy talking about that because some of the more fun stuff you can be a little more creative with. Other than that, you know, we're gonna have to be adjusting stands, working on blinds, probably eradicating some wasps. You never know. And you know, then we'll be cutting shooting lanes and doing our fall food. So that'll be all in the coming month or two. And I'm excited, so hope you guys are getting a lot done. If there's anything specific you want to talk about or you want to hear about, leave it in the comments below so I can get to work on that. And I'll see you guys soon.